Hey, how's it going, everybody? Jason Lawrence, the land guy here. I am going to check out a lot that we just got an accepted offer on. So this property has something weird going on with it. So it's got a ditch that runs right through the center of the property, and not from left to right, but from front to back, as you can see here. We need to do some investigating and figure out what this is. Is this just something that somebody put in at some point? Is there a need for this ditch to be here? Is there a reason? Do we get a lot of water coming from the property behind us here? There's a lot of things we need to check out here. The most important, is this something that the Village of Caledonia is going to require? Is this some type of a drainage easement or something that they're going to say, hey, you need to keep this here to direct water flow? Because if that's the case, it pretty much takes this almost 2-acre property and bisects it in half, and that's just kind of awkward. You know, now you got to put your house on one side or the other of this ditch. That's just probably not going to work for the customer. The other thing we're doing here, it is technically in a subdivision, but it's not like a newly developed subdivision. I don't really have a lot of knowledge of this subdivision. We've never built any homes in here before. So what I advise on most lot transactions, unless I'm familiar with the neighborhood, is that we have test holes dug on the property. So we're going to determine where we want the house to be on the property, and then we are going to have an excavator come out and dig 4 to 5 holes, 8 to 9 feet deep, the depth of a basement, in the area where the house is going to be. And the reason that we do this, you know, say we dig down 8 feet, and 2 feet down, the hole starts filling up with water. There's water seeping in, the bottom of the hole starting to cave in. That means that we've got some wet soil there. Ideally, you'd like to keep your basement floor above the high water mark. That's not always possible. And if you don't have it above the high water mark, it's probably best to consider doing 2 sump pumps and waterproofing the basement walls, which in all honesty isn't a huge expense. Between the sump pump, waterproofing the basement walls, you're probably $3,000 to $4,000. But if you know this before you purchase the lot, you can factor that into everything. You can put that into your build price. So it's very helpful to know this. The other thing that we're looking for is compactable soil. Say we were digging this test hole out in a farm field where it's just all topsoil that we see right now. We're digging down and we got to go down, 6-7 feet before we clear all of the topsoil. That's fine for the basement. Basement floor is sitting down at 8 to 9 feet deep. But as for the porch walls, there's 4-foot frost walls under the porch and under the garage. Those are now going to have to be taller walls, and there's going to be some additional expense there for that. So again, that's something that we would want to know ahead of time, so that when it can basically tell you whether or not you still want to proceed with the lot. If it's determined that there's going to be a ton of additional expense here because of the type of soil and the high water table, you may decide you don't want to move forward with the lot. So it's always a great idea to have these contingencies in place. The other thing that I'm unsure on with the property is the water. So it says that there is no municipal water there right now. Okay, that's all fine and well, but a lot of time I've come across this more recently where there's not water at the property, but because there's a water main within 200 feet of the property, the village, city, or town is going to require you to hook up to the water. So that means you have to go down the road 200 feet, extend a 12-inch water main 200 feet, and then you've got to run the water to your house. That could be $100,000 to do that. So that could be one of those things where if we determine that's the case, then it's probably certainly, nope, we're not going to buy this lot anymore. So those are the things that we need to investigate with this property. First, I need a little lunch. Well, looking at the ditch here, there's water in it. So there's water coming from somewhere. We did just recently get a lot of rain. I'm standing on the back of the property. The ditch stops about 3/4 of the way from the street. And I'm standing at the back of the property, and it seems pretty wet back here. I almost think that there's a drain tile that is coming from somewhere back there, and it's running underground, and it stops where the ditch starts, and that's where water's coming. So we're gonna have an excavator come to dig test holes here. So what we're gonna do is kind of get behind the ditch area, dig a little bit back there, and see if we can see a drain tile back there. So there's my vehicle there. I'm on the back of the property looking towards the street. There is another swale here. And the ground is definitely higher behind me. So water is definitely coming, you know, this way, which is fine. Just needs a way to go. So there's a swale here that looks like it's taking everything that's coming from there, everything from over here, and that swale's running out to the street. We'll go look and see if there's a culvert there, but it's pretty wet over in here. And then again, we've got that ditch. So I'm gonna see if I can find out if there's if anybody knows if there's a drain tile underneath here. Because if that's the case, then that drain tile is going to need to be maybe redirected into the swale right there. Would probably make the most sense. So let's say there's a drain tile underneath the ground here, and I'll show you, because it's all, you know, this is all just the ditch doesn't start until we get a little further up, and it's definitely low back here. So you can see still flat ground, and then now the ditch starts like right about here, and it goes the rest of the property towards the street. Maybe that's the excavator there. That'd be perfect, huh? So my thoughts are, there's no water in the ditch here. It starts kind of right about where that board is. So I'm wondering if there's a drain tile under here that's broke, and water started to flow on top of the ground, started to eat away at the ground. It created this ditch. I can't see anybody digging this to put this here. That wouldn't make sense. So right about here is where the ground gets flat. So maybe the drain tile is working up until this point, and then it started to break up. These drain tiles are typically old clay drain tiles that over the years they get broken up and they dissolve and disintegrate. And once that happens, the water doesn't flow through it anymore, and it starts to flow above the ground, eats away at the ground, and creates a ditch like that. And I know from my own personal experience that's what happens, because I've got a drain tile / waterway that runs along the side of my property. So one thing I'm going to do, there's a new build house that's right behind the property we're looking at. I'm going to go knock on the door and ask them if when they were digging their basement, if they came into any type of contact with the drain tile and if they needed to fix and reroute it. So I'm also going to look at the street. So you can see right behind me, there's a street, to see if there's anything on the other side of the street with maybe a culvert that comes through the street that's bringing water through here. Yeah, the other thing I'm seeing is in this area that's wet, which is pretty much in here, everything else, we're kind of in a little bowl in here, which makes sense. This is where all the water's collecting, and then it's just starting to forge a path through here. So the Mini X is here to get dropped off. This is really all you need to dig the test holes. Another thing to look at when you're standing at the street, you can tell the street runs uphill here. If I turn to the other side, it runs uphill here. That means we're in a low spot. So looking at the lot here, this is definitely the high side. That's where the house should be, to this side of that ditch. That to me looks like wetland growth over there. We'll see what we come across when we dig these test holes. I think at the very least, this property is going to need a lot of fill. You would probably be putting the top of your basement wall up out of the ground, you know, maybe 2-3 feet, and then having to fill in around it and create any water that's coming from the back of the lot and divert that around the house, you know, off to each side of the property line, but still got to find out about that ditch going down the middle of the lot. So this is kind of a perfect example here. You can see this property before it was built on was probably just as low as the one that we're looking at. And look at the, you know, that pole barn is built up probably about 4 to 5 feet off of the ground level. So their foundation walls, when they built there, were probably sticking out of the ground, you know, close to 4 feet, and they had to fill in everything around it so that you get positive drainage. But yeah, you can see there, you're definitely getting water coming off of that area right there. So there's the garden shed that was on the lot. From here I can only see the bottom of the window. There's at least 4 feet between the bottom of the window and the ground. So where I'm standing right now, I'm probably 5-6 feet above the current elevation of our lot. There's the house that was behind us. You can see even this one, that's where the ground level was. Look how high they jacked that up. And then even looking further off into the west, it still goes uphill from there. So there's quite a bit of, from here all the way through here, everything is running downhill towards the lot there. This home's still under construction. No one's living here, so I'm gonna call the builder and again ask them if they experienced any issues with the drain tile when they dug the basement. Yeah, I pulled in the neighbor's driveway here. Yeah, the top of their basement wall is probably 5 feet above the top of this guy's basement wall here. So they really jacked themselves out of the ground, which is what I'm gonna recommend on our lot. The only disadvantage when you do that, now you don't have a flat area around your house, which is fine. You've got to kind of build up all of the grade around it. So you're not necessarily going to have a flat lot in the back unless you bring in a lot of fill and kind of fill in the back of the lot as well. All right, so I got a hold of the builder there. They said that they did not hit any type of a drain tile when they dug the hole. I still don't want to completely rule that out because their house is up out of the ground so much to where their basement floor might very well be above where the underground drain tile is. So I'm not gonna rule that out completely. I think when the test holes are dug on the property, they're gonna be able to dig behind where that ditch starts and dig down 3 to 4 feet and see if they find anything there. And if not, then I can, I guess, confidently say that that's just a path over the years that water has taken and has kind of washed that area out into its own ditch. And once a home is put there and the area is filled in around the house, then the water will go around the house. It'll get diverted to both of the side property lines. So even though that is a low area and a wet area back there, it doesn't mean that it can't work. It's a nice property. There's not a ton of properties for sale. So a lot of times it's just, if you got a property like that, it's just knowing what to do to make it work. So in this case, I can definitely say that the top of the basement wall is probably going to be out of the ground by 3-4 feet. Everything is going to need to be filled in around it. And in turn, that will take that low land and bring up the entire grade with it. And when that happens, that means that the water is going to take a different path. It'll flow to both of the side lot lines, continue towards the front of the lot. So it'll always be wet at the front of the lot because there's really nowhere for it to go. That lot, again, is kind of in a low spot where there's a little bit of a dip in the road. So the water's not going to consistently run through the ditch from right to left or left to right. So it's just always something that, my property is the same way. I've got a dip in the street where I'm at, and I'm always going to have water there. So it's just something that, you deal with, you grade properly, you do the proper precautions, and you should really not have any issues. All right, well, that's gonna do it for this video. If you are in the market for a lot or for a big piece of land, I just had a meeting last night at the town of Dover with a 25-acre parcel that I'm assisting the property owner in splitting up, and it even involves putting a new street into the property. So anything from big to small, is if it's vacant land, I'm your guy. I can help you with it, and I can make sure that you go down the right path. That's all I got for this one. Thank you very much. I'll put my contact info in the details below. Take care.